Recording in
Meeting
progress.
order. All right, Pencil Water Management District meeting on November the 18th. We're scheduled for a closed session meeting. But first we'll start with the roll call.
Director Oglesby. Director Adams.
Here.
Director Paul. Here. Director Eisenhardt.
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
Vice Chair Riley.
Here.
Chair Anderson. The record note she's absent today.
As Vice Chair, I'm chair of the meeting tonight. Are there any additions, corrections to the agenda? The next would be if there's any public comment online.
Right, and we have no members of the public in attendance.
Okay, we will
So,
close the public session of this water management
Chair-
district meeting.
Vice Chair Riley, if you give me just a few minutes, I can shut the meeting down.
Okay. on November the 18th. Let's, what do we do? Call the roll for the
Roll
first
call,
time?
yes.
Oh, pledge allegiance. Call the roll. No, go ahead and pledge allegiance first. I'll lead it. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm going to turn, yeah, okay, let's have a roll call.
Okay. Director Oglesby,
Here.
Director Adams,
Here.
Director Paul. Here. Director Eisenhart,
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
Vice Chair Riley,
Here.
and Chair Anderson is absent tonight.
Okay, I'm going to defer to the general manager for this next item.
Well, I'm going to prep you for this next item, but you will do the awarding. We have two recognitions this evening. One is to Director Eisenhart, Director of Division 3, being recognized for 2 years of exceptional service to the community, 2022 through 2024. And the second is to Supervisor Adams, recognized for 7 years of exceptional service to the community, 2017 through 2024. And one of the pleasurable things that we do is environmental stewardship for the fish and the vegetation on the river. And I thought that would be a fitting memory for you in your already cluttered offices with all of the superlatives that you have. So, Mr. Interim Chairman, if you would
Interim chair.
pass these
Stumble
along.
over everything. Well, why don't you be part of the picture here?
Somebody should take a picture.
Should go up front anyway, baby.
Yeah, you want to come around, front,
Oh, okay.
get the chair?
Wait, Mark, go in front.
Well,
Yeah.
out of expedience. we'll
Well,
just-
but no, this is, they're leaving.
This
I've
is
got-
Mark.
I've got
Mark,
Mary's.
Go ahead, go ahead. I tried taking you.
I want-
Thank you.
Nobody listens.
I-
On the edge.
Just take headshots.
Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. Why don't you get in the middle too? And then-
That's better.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
And
Good job, Maddie.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely idea. Picture of the river.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Wow.
Black. Look at that.
I love that picture. That's a great picture.
And just for edification of our audience, this will be your last meeting. The registrar will certify the election here shortly, and the new members will be seated at the December meeting.
Not remember.
Not your member, because they don't get appointed until January.
Correct.
So
I will probably be here.
excellent. Happy to have
One
you.
more
Thank
time,
you.
one more time. Good to hear. Well, thank you both very much. Do any members of the district board want to add any comments?
Thank you, Director Rowley. Just to the supervisor, she, as chair of the board, she and ran a pretty taut ship and a good meeting. I'm going to miss her.
Thank you.
She been good to listen to and bring suggestions and stuff. But I'm going to miss her from coming next year. And that brings me to the next guy, Mark. I think Mark applied for this board about twice, wasn't it? Twice, and got kicked down and didn't prevail. But once he got on this board, I found out what I've been missing. Yeah, he's a lawyer, and I used to think, well, we got too many lawyers on the board. No, and what I learned, we don't have enough. So Mark, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. It's been great hearing from you, listening to your suggestions, help guiding the board. So, and one thing I appreciate you finding somebody to take your seat. I hope they be just as good as you. But
It could be better.
maybe better, but I appreciate all the help that you gave the board. And I hope you stay involved with the community and with the board because you got great suggestions. I'm going to miss you, Mark. Thank you
Thank you.
for your service, though.
It's been great working with both of you. Like Alvin, I will miss you too. And yeah, each of you has brought so much to this work, very different things, and it's great. And yeah, we will miss you. Thank you.
Mayor?
I guess I'll add, I'll miss them too. And I know we'll see Mary again, but Mark and for Mary, it's kind of like what Alvin said, it's, the words and the dedication that you guys bring to the decisions we make up here. I always look forward to and always learn from, particularly advocacy and, someone's going to become behind Mark, but you can't replace him. Can't replace the knowledge and what he allows to do. And so I'm saying with Mary, but I know we'll see her, at another meeting. But I only been here a short amount of time, but this group is really a good group, and you two are the best of the group. To be honest with you, right? In my opinion. In my opinion.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I mean, no, I'm just, it's just my opinion, right? It's just an opinion. So I'll miss you. I really wanted to work with you longer. And so I'll miss that part.
You might not get rid of me that fast.
Well, that's good.
May I?
Well,
May I say something?
I'm gonna go next, and then you'll have a share, and then you'll have a chance. So, no, but Mark, I want to say that you're a live wire in strategic thinking. You do think about, the implications of what's happening and what their likely path forward is. And I love your contributions to the discussion, even though you sometimes claim you're shooting from the hip. It never seems that way. It never seems that way. And I've just enjoyed very much, but I'm also got my ears wide open, my eyes wide open when you're choosing to speak, because I never know where you're going. But
Neither do I.
but I know it's substantive. That's my point. I know it's substantive, and I really look forward to that. And Mary, I've known Mary for a long time, and I just think the world of her view of what the country needs, the community needs, the effort that you put into it. And what I like and what I think we learn from it, and I think we ought to continue to learn from this experience, and I put Ian in the same category, people who have been involved in larger structures, larger organizations. You bring a point of view and an awareness that we don't share that much because we're not that large. And we can learn from that. We learned from both of you, but I think we've learned a lot from your involvement with the board, and we do need the board. We need the board supervisors on many issues around water, whether it's here or in the valley. And you've been a major contribution not only to water, but to just the quality of life on the peninsula. And I just appreciate so much of what you've done, and I'm so aware of what you've done too. And I appreciate it. Now I'm going to give Mark a chance to speak, and I'll give Mary.
My short tenure here began with you, Mary, as our chairperson, and I loved watching over the past few years that I've been here in Monterey, the style. It was, I think, Alvin the first, or I think it was, or maybe it was Karen. Then now I can't remember the order. And then by the time my term started, it was you. And I'm sorry Amy's not here because I would have something to say. You have such a grace, that you're so regal and you're so empathetic, and you were quite you had quite an impact on me as our gavel holder my first year here, and it was amazing. You are all very amazing, talented, knowledgeable people, including staff. And Michael, I know your dad left already, and this was a wild, awesome 2-year ride. It really was. It was amazing. Sarah, I got you. And I just wanted to say thank you. And I really like the plaque. I love the photo.
like I'm coveting this plaque right now, just so you know.
Well, it's yours.
Lovely.
That's it. Thank you.
Mary?
Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for your very, very kind words. It's humbling to hear people that I have such regard for and so much respect for speaking so highly of me. So I am very appreciative of that. I think one of the things that I'm really thankful for is not just those of us sitting here, but you who are sitting out there, because we're all working on the same subject. We might have different approaches, we might have different attitudes toward it, but the truth is, all of us really care about ensuring that we've got good quality water for the people who live in Monterey County. And I'm very thankful, and I want you to know that. The amount of time that you come to the meetings and put in and sit there and listen, it's a really important thing for our community. It's an important thing for civilization. I've had this feeling for a long time that government is like a pyramid. And if we're strong at the base, it doesn't really matter what happens at the top. If it crumbles, we're still going to be okay because we're all here and we're all working and pulling in the same direction. So I thank you all so much. And with that, I'll just thank you so much. And I too just really love the plaque. It's the most beautiful that I have. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, and thank the board, and thank the general manager and staff. And do you have more?
Well, I would like Director Eisenhart to report back at some point how many angels can fit on the head of a pin.
Will do.
All right.
Not that dance.
Dance on the head of a pin.
Well, thank you very much for your service, and we'll miss both of you very much. And the future still in the hands of the elected board, so we'll do the best we can. So let's go back to the regular agenda. So to the GM, are there any additions and corrections to the agenda?
There are not.
Are there any oral communications from the public? You have speak on any item that's not on our agenda, and you have 3 minutes. Anyone that want to speak?
I do have one raised hand in the Zoom audience.
Okay, add them, call on them, please.
And caller, when you're ready, you may address the board.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Ann Coppernall. I'm losing my voice. I have some allergy here. But I just wanted to let all of you know this evening that there's a upcoming critical meeting taking place in Marina that the State Lands Commission is sponsoring. It's a community outreach meeting with emphasis on environmental justice on December 6th. However, there will also be 3 panelists, one, land management, environment, and environmental justice. Those are the 3 panelists. The location has changed twice now, so I don't want to say where it's going to be, but if it's potentially going to be at the Marina City Hall, but a confirmation will be coming later. Apologize for not being able to be more precise today, or the times. It probably will start around 11 a.m. So the State Lands Commission is presently reviewing California American Water Company's permit application to install 4 additional flat wells and convert the existing test flat well to a permanent one at the Citic's property. The former sand mining operation that was forced to close in 2020 after signing the consent cease and desist settlement agreement among the Coastal Commission, the City of Marina, and the sand mining operation, along with the State Lands Commission in 2017. That settlement agreement came after the State Lands Commission had already granted a permit to Cal-Am to install its flat well at the scenic easement it was leasing. So this will be an opportunity for all of us to express our concerns about this operation and let them know the truth and the facts and present evidence. Just as of today, I was told that Cal-Am is taking source water for its desal plant from the ocean, and that was confirmed by the Coastal Commission. And when I explained the opposite was the case, that the water is coming from Marina's aquifers, they said, well, do you have proof? So anyway, we have a big challenge ahead of us. I also wanted to express my extreme impressive of the wonderful job that Mark and Mary have done on this board. That resolution of necessity was an extraordinary, masterful piece of work and just incredible. So I want to thank you all and tell you what a fabulous job you're doing and have done, and wish you the very best in the future. And I also would like to thank the board in general for all the wonderful work they are doing to support our water issues and to support us, our communities. And I want to wish you all blessings for a joyful Thanksgiving. Thank you all so much.
And thank you for the information and the comments. Any other members on Zoom?
I
Public
see no
members?
other raised hands.
There are no more hands.
There are no other.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. The next item is consent calendar. There are 5 items. Does any member of the board have any comments or anyone want to pull an item? I want to pull item number 4 for a comment. Any actions from, go ahead.
Just my usual, Sarah, if the minutes could reflect that as to item 1, because I wasn't there, I would abstain.
Okay.
Through the chair, you said you wanted to pull item number 4?
I want to pull item number 4, yes.
I move approval of the consent agenda. After removing item number 4.
Okay, the motion is to move 1, 2, 3, and 5 with an abstention on item 1.
I'll second.
Any other comments? All in favor? Let's see, roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. With the abstention noted for item number 1. Okay.
Number 4.
And number 4, I just wanted to comment, and if I can just find my page. I just wanted to comment. I commented at the admin committee meeting on the same point. And I just wanted to comment just for the sake of the full board. The Special District Association of the California Special District Association sponsored and structured a investment fund to benefit special districts. This was, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 8 or 10 or so. They were recently promoting it because it's got a good return. It's got a little different structure. And we were recommending that the county, that our district consider that. The finance officer and the GM agreed to do that. And so this is the first time I've seen an investment firm, an investment into that account. And I'm just glad to see that. That's all. It's just been taking advantage of what the Special District Association for California has done, and we're participating in it for the first time. So I'm just glad to see that. So I will move approval of item number 4 on the consent calendar. Any more discussion? I'm sure there's not. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. Okay, that's the consent calendar has been approved. So now we'll move to item number 6, which is the general manager's report.
And I'll be relatively brief because we're only 1 month into the water year. There's not much to say, but Sarah, if you put it up. Next slide. Terrific. Okay. You can see that for the 1 month of reporting, the Carmel River water right, which is roughly 3,400 acre feet, has been tapped a little more than the target, but certainly within range. And I know that somebody somewhere will point it out, but 237 plus 12 actually does not equal 250 on the Seaside Groundwater Basin line for the actual, and that's just due to rounding. So close enough. On the next slide, I just wanted to highlight here that Pure Water Monterey recovery was lower for the month than target. And that was due in combination to, we're building the expansion project. And in order to tie things in from time to time, we had to shut things down at the base project. And then also due to some water quality issues for a period of 2 to 3, 4 days, it was run at a lower capacity. So deliveries were a little bit lower to us for injection and then sale to the company. By comparison, September was 313 acre feet. And then October was 270. So we really are trying to reach that 320 to 330 target on a monthly basis here during the winter.
Just a little bit of a prerogative here, since this is my last meeting, may not be on the agenda otherwise. Is the expansion project still precisely on target that we can tell?
That's great. I was going to bring you up to speed. So its critical issue at this point is not really construction. It's what I'll call regulatory process. So we need the Division of Drinking Water to review and approve the engineering report as a precursor to the Regional Water Quality Control Board having a hearing on the permits. About right, Mike? Yeah. And I think that there's a little concern, a little bit of risk that Division of Drinking Water here locally is not moving quickly enough. But we do have a meeting scheduled up, Monterey One Water and them December 5th. And so if they come back to December 5th and say, oh no, everything's coming together and there's just these minor items, then we'll be fine. But we are looking very carefully at the regulatory timeline, more so than the contractor timeline.
Thank you.
Yep, it's a good question. Next slide, please, Sarah. Those are the various sources of production totaling up to the 852 acre feet for the month of October. Next slide. This is rainfall. You can see there was no rainfall in October, but the next slide shows that there was some in November, but the scale is so distorted here. You know, the top number is 0.3 inches. So even November is kind of meaningless. There is a bomb cyclone. It's now achieved that name. It's when a low pressure and high pressure event kind of collide out in the ocean, but it's a little bit north of us. So the atmospheric rivers that are predicted for Northern California may very much miss the peninsula. I agree, because it's 8 inches of potential rain being dropped on Marin and Sonoma counties instead of here. But we'll, maybe, things do shift. But otherwise, we're below normal for middle of October. So stay tuned. And then the final graph is just stream flow, and you can see that the river continued to flow throughout the year. So while there were drybacks in certain reaches of the river and fish rescues, the river, generally speaking, is still flowing to the lagoon. And you asked the question that I was going to bring up next, and so we can just leave the general manager's report as done.
I've got a question on the status of the CalAm's work on the new pumps,
New wells.
new wells.
Yeah. So there's some confusion out there. I've heard, and I saw your question. So ASR wells number 3 and 4 remain in extraction mode only. So as we head into this ASR season beginning December 1st, even if there is sufficient injection water available, we're limited to injection wells 1 and 2. At the same time, CalAm is in progress of building extraction wells 1 and 2 for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. And so those are underway. They will require DDW final approvals and so forth. I suspect, I don't know, Josh, if you know, but I suspect they're still a year away from completion, so that their timeline will be kind of the same as the expansion timeline. Those wells, when they come online, does not mean that ASR 3 and 4 immediately revert back to extraction and injection. Because ultimately, for the expansion project, we had proposed 4 new wells. So there's extraction wells 3 and 4, which are intended to be located at the Fitch Park location, which requires additional negotiation with the Presidio over easements. So I'm not sure what that timeline is going to be. But that will be a subject of discussion, where the goal is to have these 4 new extraction wells, and funding for that was done through the phase 1 part of the current PUC proceeding, which is related to the expansion, and the water purchase agreement for the expansion was phase 1. So recovery of the well costs through ratepayers is directly tied to the Pure Water Monterey expansion. So it doesn't mean that there's going to be a lot of surplus extraction capacity, because there's been a shortage of extraction capacity in that area. So ultimately, we want to see extraction wells 3 and 4 come online at some point sooner, if not later, because we'd like to convert ASR 3 and 4 back to injection and extraction. But that will not be happening within the next 18 months. So
So the best forecast is for next season.
right.
And
So
that- and that may be optimistic, right?
right, but and so that means on ASR we're going to be restricted to, you know, kind of max 13 acre-feet per day of injection for this season. We'd like to get it back to 17, 18 acre-feet per day. And when Pure Water Monterey comes online, there will be barely redundant extraction capacity in that area.
Yeah, well, we still have the dilemma of missing some of these water events.
Yeah.
Rain events, winter events.
For injection.
Yeah, for an injection.
Well,
Yes, go ahead. Director.
thank you, Chair. We're ready for this year.
Yeah. Yes.
So the well's been rehabbed and
Yep.
1 and 2 or 1.
If we had not done it as an emergency, we might not be ready by
Right.
December 1st. So
Okay, so
that was a good decision.
just fine tune.
Yeah, because they just wrapped that up a week ago,
Okay, yeah,
Good to hear.
maybe 2. But
good.
yeah.
And are we going to participate in any of the state lands commission upcoming meeting
Well,
on
as-
the
yeah, as-
environmental justice or whatever?
Well, and as Margaret
can
Ann
get-
said, it's been rescheduled and moved a couple of times. So
Okay.
we're following, it's on the calendar.
Okay, so we will participate.
And
in
and
that.
we did send a letter. We were going to send a second letter encouraging them to do a supplemental EIR, but they actually addressed the question, and they are doing, I think, an addendum to an existing EIR, but they did see that it was in need of CEQA work as opposed to just writing on the previous CEQA work. So they're working on that. But
Okay.
we did a letter on, basically environmental justice, social justice issues.
And somebody will be there to present that, or I'll hope you,
Well, hopefully it's me. There's a lot going on in that same time period, but
Okay.
I was clear for the previously scheduled one. I'm not 100% sure I'm clear for this one.
okay. So, and my next question is, our first meeting of the year coming up. I want to give people a little bit of time to prepare. Could we get a presentation from Cal-Am on the work that they're doing out there? I've been out there to the golf courses and I've seen drill rigs and everything going up and working. I like the public to see those drill rigs and in a meeting and a little presentation. And Mike left out of here before I could ask, hey, if Monterey One Water got something they want to share and give us a little presentation to the public on what's going on out there and making sure that we are on time for the end of October of next year or whatever. Bring that to light to the public. you know,
So at our next chair, vice chair meeting, we'll bring that topic up and
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Cal-Am and give them a
and
chance
in
to.
one water and
Yeah.
see what we can do. And don't have to be in December. It could be in January, February. So
Great.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from board members? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stoll. Next item is report from district council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, the board did meet in closed session on 3 different items, all regarding existing litigation. I'm going to just briefly cover, well, there's nothing to report out of closed session, but we do have the litigation report in our packet starting on page 77 that'll walk us through, and that'll cover what we is available for the public from our closed session meeting as well. Regarding the first set of cases, this is the MPTA cases. District litigation counsel has engaged in settlement discussions with counsel for MPTA in an effort to wrap up all litigation matters. That's the 6 total, but 5 active cases. And they're looking to address potential refunds and payments of attorney's fees. Regarding the second case in my report, this is MPWMD versus Cal-Am 23 CV 004102. This is regarding the public's ownership of Cal-Am. There was finally a order issued by the court dismissing Cal-Am's demurrage. It was published November 14th. On November 6th, Cal-Am did take general manager's deposition regarding factual findings. And Judge Vallarta has calendared a case management conference on this matter for tomorrow, November 19th. That'll be at the Monterey Superior Court. Regarding Monterey Peninsula Water Management District versus the LAFCO, this is case number 22 CB 000925. As we are aware, the matter is on appeal before the 6th District Court. Cal-Am and LAFCO have asked for a 45-day extension, and the briefing schedules for oral argument will be clarified at the December 6th date. Regarding the City of Marina and Monterey Peninsula Water Management District versus the California Coastal Commission and Cal-Am, this is case number 22 CB 004063. A trial on the merits is to be held on December 9th before Judge Wills and Department 15th at the Monterey Superior Court. That covers all of the most recent updates as to what's going on regarding issues at the CPUC, as we discussed last month and over the last couple months. Everything's been pushed out till 2025, so I'm not going to go into it, but it is written in the report starting on page 79. And then the last one I just want to address again is the MPWMD versus State Water Resources Control Board. This is case number 1-10-CB-163328. This is stemming from a request for attorney's fees, but we haven't had any movement on that. There's potential that this will come back for further discussion. That concludes my report.
Through the chair.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, Chair. LAFCO, we are not, for the public's sake, we are not done with LAFCO yet. Could you clarify that is at the appeal court next? The mayor was approved or whatever, and now it moves on to the 6th District Court, and it can come back. So we're not clear of LAFCO yet.
That's correct. These issues are ongoing. We are in front of the 6th District Court of Appeal. We're in the middle of the briefing schedules there. Once they do issue their opinions, it may come back.
Okay, thank you.
Full update. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one quick comment. We don't need to you said. Yeah, I think it's probably not necessary to discuss the 7th item on the district council's report, that case that was filed in 2009 and is still open, but I found the description of this case unclear, and we don't need to, belabor it now, but if you could clarify it for the next meeting, if there's something to report, just make it a little the explanation of, why no final judgment, why is it still open, why did it, what was being appealed, and it may not be the most important case that, only probably doesn't merit a huge amount of attorney time, but it just, if you could make the explanation a little clearer. I'd
Yeah,
appreciate
we'll
it.
certainly do that and we'll clean it up for the next report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 8, which are oral reports from any of our members who attended other meetings, associations, reports from outside agencies.
I have just
Okay, please.
So I attended not as a member of the board, but just as an individual, a fundraiser for the Water Keepers, which is focused on communities that lack safe drinking water. And there are apparently a number in the state and in Monterey County. And they also take kids, high school age kids out to visit various bodies of water and learn about the water system and the water needs. So it's a good organization, but it's just a reminder that, to me, that water projects need public money to be financed. I mean, the main reason, the communities that don't have clean water is where they're located and the lack of investment in the systems. And it's just a reminder to me that, investments like these in water systems typically, require some public funding because they're long-term big. And it's the subject of some of the letters in our packet, the letters that our general manager wrote to our members of Congress to try and preserve some of the public funding that might be available to projects that we're involved in. So the public funding is important, and I fear that a lot of it is going to be pulled back now under the Trump administration. But I appreciate the efforts to try and get as much and keep as much as we can for the projects that we're working on.
Thank you. Any other board member? I have a report on the Water Master brief. We had a meeting about a week or so ago. The main discussion from my point of view was trying to set a target for a protective water level in the basin, seaside groundwater basin. The discussion centered around two bookend numbers about there's a high number of 3,600 acre feet that's needed versus a lower number, which I forget the lower number was in the 1,000 or 1,000 so. And the discussion centered on, at least my interpretation of the discussion, was whether we want to set a planning or a commitment to seek a certain amount of water to protect the basin. And my concern was we're not in a position to make a commitment for a target amount of, for a specific amount of water. And as the discussion went around and around, I end up thinking that, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with having a planning target as opposed to a fulfillment target or a protective target. And so it was just a matter of semantics. And from my standpoint, that I felt like a planning target might be a workable target, even though it's the highest number possible. And I was concerned about that, but nevertheless, the board agreed to adopt a planning target. And I don't know if that was much significance in anybody's world but mine, but I thought it was significant. Anyway, and the mayor was at the meeting, so, and I sure offered him a chance if he wants to comment, but not required. But anyway, okay, that was.
It had significance in my world. And I just want to add briefly that there was a comment made by one of the Water Master board members, I think Mr. Gagliardi, that the TAC had been over this for more than a year and had arrived at some numbers. And it's important to recall that the district voted no for approval of those numbers at TAC review. And the district sent a letter stating that many of the assumptions we found faulty, which led to those bookend numbers. And nothing has changed to address those concerns. So as far as the district is concerned, some of which leads to the numbers that you're talking about. We're not satisfied on a scientific basis. And we also believe that none of the engineering work has been done to look at physical solutions for what you do with protective water and where you inject it. And is there capacity even available without building new stuff? And so we're a little concerned that the cart is before the horse, and that the numbers that are being bandied about don't have a strong basis. And so we'll continue to try to keep you, and I think the mayor, as well as Alvin, has weighed in many times on seaside issues. So we'll try to keep you apprised of our concerns.
Well, if I can just add one other thing, it seems like the attorneys for the water master will be reporting back in January on the options that might be available to the water master to seek some kind of income arrangement, finance revenue source. And until we get that, the full picture isn't out there for discussion. So even though we have a target number, there's no infrastructure plan, there's no financial arrangements and so on. So anyway, it's still a mixed bag to be considered. But anyway, the water master is trying to take seriously the fact that it has an obligation to kind of protect the basin and move in some future direction.
Which I think is important, but the number is kind of an amalgam. It's a little bit of Frankenstein's monster at this point. And no one at the Water Master Board has factored in what's going to happen when the pure water expansion starts delivering water that in the first year, the first 2 years, the first potentially 10 years has no demand for. And so that can become a deposit that in and of itself provides protective water levels. Or if the company decides to utilize all that water, they'll end up doing in lieu recharge of their full 1,474 acre foot water right. So it needs to be looked at.
Okay, to be continued.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no other director reports on that, where are we?
Number 9.
I'm number 9. Okay.
Number 9, Mr. Rowley's article. I heard him discussing earlier, so there will be public comment.
Item number 9. Okay.
What we are asking for is authorization to budget for and hire the most qualified rate consultant, but direct that no work be done until this board meets again to decide whether they want to move forward with a substitute water supply charge or whatever you choose to name it. The goal of that exercise would be to provide a greater description of its uses, not have a citizens oversight panel. Add Ryan Ranch and Bishop because they're now connected to the main system, and to not have a sunset provision. So basically similar to typical water rates and fees that go through a Prop 218 process. You can always, through the budget process, lower it, suspend it, but leave the fee intact. So you would have, that authority. There was some discussion earlier about collecting it at a level slightly below where the previous one was collected. But all of those tools would require an updated rate study so you can justify what services the district provides to property owners. And then the land use method is our preferred method, which is how it was collected before, or how it was allocated before, to demonstrate the nexus between services provided by the district and benefits received by the property owners, which is a requirement of Prop 218. The collection mechanism previously was a convenience. We actually looked at in-house billing, third-party billing, and the treasurer tax collector as billing agent. And so that was just done as a convenience. But because it was a line item on a property tax bill, it got the attention of our Taxpayers Association and the realtors. But again, we're only asking at this point in time to enter into a contract, select the consultant, spend no money until the actual issue is back in the board's hands.
Good. Any comments from
I have none.
I do.
guys? Okay.
I support that.
I support the recommendation to do this.
I want to add just a comment that I think when the water supply charge got invested in water supply, seriously invested in water supply, it was partly because the Cal-Am's desal project was going nowhere. And there needed to be a supply, and there was a demand, community-wide demand on getting a supply in place. So we began using the water supply charge, not that we began, but we used that valuable income revenue source to help finance a lot of this. So even though the Taxpayers Association had a case to make, and they did make it, that was a valuable resource for the commitment we were making through Monterey One, as well as our organization, to add to the water supply and to get a stable water supply into the future, in the many years into the future. So anyway, I'm in favor of this too, moving forward.
May I touch on your comment just briefly, because you're absolutely right. If you recall, what happened was, and the community embraced, the three-legged stool. So desal was part of it, but ASR is part of it, and Pure Water Monterey was part of it. And in effect, Cal-Am said, well, if you can get your little water recycling project moved and qualified and ready to go, yeah, then we'll downsize from 9.6 million gallons per day to 6.4 on the desal. And then desal got hung up in extended CEQA review, extended analysis of the slant well, and it lost ground to Pure Water Monterey, which was ready to go. And so by virtue of it being ready to go, it got built and it came online, and following the cease and desist order, the renegotiated cease and desist order time schedule, it came online in 2020, and the company had to get down within its legal limit December 31st, 2021. And without the Pure Water project having come online, they would not have been able to do so. So it was essential for the community to, kind of keep its nose clean with the state regulators. And it was successful, and it came online basically on time, a little late. But yeah, that was money very well spent.
Yeah, for the benefit of the community, of course.
Yep.
We're ready to hear from Mr. Raleigh.
Good evening, Tom Raleigh. I'm Vice President at Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Authority. It's interesting that you're still considering the refund on the previous illegal extension and not canceling and sunsetting it as was required and promised by the general manager when it originally passed. And some of you weren't around, but we had 15,000 people who wanted to have a vote on it. And because there were, I believe, about 2,000 that had filled out the forms wrong, or whatever, so we only had 13,000. So that's why there wasn't a vote on whether to have the original Prop 218. I can tell you the next time, we'll make damn sure that any protests are done and not counted by the legal limit voters, and which they were in favor of the Prop 218. So the thing is, if you want to come up with another proposal, you denied our request to sunset it as promised by the general manager when it originally passed. So we had to sue. We didn't like to do that. So, that's very extraordinary. We've only done that twice in the years I've been with the Taxpayers Authority, and you weren't following your own ordinance. So whatever needs to be done, it should be done legally. You have no oversight thing, which I think is an oversight by Mr. Stoll. So you use the extra funds. We didn't say you didn't use them for something that was legal, but you were required to sunset the ordinance and didn't. So we expect that if something's done in the future, that it be done legally, be done correctly. And I'm sure we would be willing to have something, but I'm going to request this because this came out of the blue. I just read it with the agenda report. So we hope that whatever you do decide to do, you do it. And see what happens. Whether there will be a public vote on this. You guys overextended your authority and collected about 10 years worth of extra funds, which went, I'm not saying it wasn't spent for something logical, but it wasn't authorized. So we would, whatever was done legally and followed. You guys need to ask the tough questions to make sure stuff is done legally and you follow your own ordinance and hold the feet to fire of the staff, including the general manager. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Any other public comments on Zoom at all?
No, I see no raised hands.
Okay, any other members of the audience? Okay, well, we're at the agenda item for action. Any comments from the committee? I mean, the board? I'd entertain a motion for approval to authorize general manager to proceed.
I so move.
I'll second it, but quickly on second, this is just going to be set aside until we're ready. And then if you come back, you'll come back with a timetable, timeline and everything and the legal part of this,
Yes.
how we want to participate, 218 or whatever.
Yeah, and I think the starting point is we have to see what the settlement discussions on the lawsuit yield. And then you need to decide whether you need to backfill funds to balance budgets or not. So, yeah, the goal, the three firms that we have quotes on include the company that did our original one in 2012, includes the rate consultant we have on the Measure J, the Citizens Acquisition. Sorry. It includes Raftelis, who's working on the, all the rate related stuff on the acquisition. And then Mark Hildebrandt, Michelle has worked with in the past, and Marina Coast Water District, who just had their rate hearings a couple months ago, utilized for their rate study.
So this report that if we generate it can tell us a lot more than just water supply could tell us how the rates look for other things like acquisition and everything else.
Well, exactly. And, we're toying a little bit with, so Hildebrandt had a more of an orientation to the user fee. And keep in mind, part of our existing user fee, about 1.2% of the total, actually went through a Prop 218 process probably in 2008 or 9. And it's designed to go to aquifer storage and recovery, but it's in the user fee. So we could elect to increase the user fee, or we could decide to do a land use based charge, which is what we did before, and collect it separately based on sending notices to the property owner. And that's why we contracted with the tax collector previously. One puts all your revenue back on the volumetric and meter charge and increases the size of the user fee. The other splits it into two the way it was before. But we'd be clear on what the uses could be. We conceded to only use it on water supply related activities as part of the negotiation with the taxpayers group and the realtors group. But the actual definition in the previous ordinance was, it could have included water demand, which are conservation activities and so forth. But I think we need to make it clear that it can also include legal expenses for examining the public's buyout of Cal-Am, and can include district-wide voting requirements, because we always end up talking about allocating some of the registrar's fees every election cycle to the water supply fund. And I know that came up with, well, it's not water supply related, but Yeah, our leadership is related to provision of water supply. So all of that can be addressed and much more clearly laid out. The important thing about just being a public agency is you get to look at these rate studies and you go, oh, okay, I know what it is you're providing a service for. I know what it costs, and I see how you've allocated that cost. So that happens no matter whether you put it on the assessor's bill directly or put it in the user fee. And that transparency is one thing that, I would challenge you as a ratepayer of CalAMS to ever see on how your CalAM rates were calculated. But so it's useful to have anyway, because it kind of updates recognition of the services that we provide.
Thank you.
Yes.
Through the chair, just would add to what Dave Stolcher said, that also all of the sources on the transparency comment, all the sources of revenue and all the expenditures are public in our annual report and our quarterly and monthly reports. It's all public information. So if any member of the public wants to know where the money comes from and what it is spent on, it's there for the public.
And I know we want to get off the subject, but that's why I always resented the phrase that we've been double dipping, because we don't spend two $1 bills on something that cost $1. So every piece of revenue that we've raised has been spent on some expense that, as you point out, you can see. So it's, we've been using all of our monies on things that benefit the public. So.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this, and it will be back on our agenda sometime in the future as we gather more information and more perspective on what our needs are. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 10 is big commitment.
It's a very large request, and we're entering the right to take trial. I mean, we've been in it since filing in December a year ago, but now we're starting with discovery request for document production. We have worked with the proposed utility consultant from the beginning, but that initial contract was through DeLay and Laredo in order basically to keep confidentiality during that first year of activities. We amended that contract once, but now we want to start it based on a new set of scope of services, which I included, I believe, as Exhibit A. Mr. Close does have experience in this area, having worked on the Apple Valley attempted buyout and the Missoula, Montana successful buyout. But he's moving away from wanting to provide expert testimony and may not be in this for the 3 to 4 year long haul that it might take. Will certainly be with us for the next 18 to 24 months. Much of the scope of services that he has overlaps a little bit with the second request here. And so as we work out who's doing what, it's not going to be the sum of the two. It will be, I think Craig will reduce some of the hours committed to, and it'll get picked up by the civil engineering consulting firm. So that's the first part. The second part is consulting civil engineer, which includes kind of three big areas. One is condition assessment of the CalAM system, and that is both a part of discovery where we will get to be on site. And the idea there is to have a team come parachute in several days, see all the facilities, and make judgment as to facility condition, operating conditions, and so forth. They will also be reviewing documents that we obtain through discovery to kind of assess the system and system operations relative to industry standard and best practices. Then there's some capital improvement plan work that we need them to do under our ownership. What would a capital improvement plan look like? You take that and that goes into the cost of service study that Reftelis will be updating as part of their services. And then finally, using today's construction cost estimation, what would be the replacement costs of the system? And that helps Reftelis then in one of the three areas of valuation to kind of recheck using even better techniques. But you're only as good as the information that you find, and replacement costs new. Less depreciation means less depreciation at today's dollars. So we're going to have to do very well in discovery to get depreciation studies out of their hands and into the hands of our engineers. So, you know, the good thing is on the one bid that we've received to date, they understand the work that's being asked of them quite well. So that's a positive. As we've talked about, there are a couple of legal bumps along the way that if we lose early on, then much of this work just goes away. So this is just to get us prepared. The total budget is 2.2 million, roughly. There are other big ticket items that are not even reflected here that we have to keep in mind. You know, the attorneys are now incurring quite a bit of hours related to the actual case. I would call that $1 million budget. And then we have approved work by Reftelis, but they haven't done their work, and that's several $100,000. So we'll continue to give you the informational item on all the costs related to this, but this is going to be a big 1.5 to 2 years of expenditure and work, frankly. So the request here is to authorize the amounts and allow us to enter into contracts, one with Close and Associates and one with the most qualified consulting engineering firm. I'm giving that about a day to see. We've got 2 others that we've asked for proposals. I'm not sure that we're going to get 2 more. But once we know, then we can choose.
Questions?
Yes.
Anyone? Yes.
Is our CFO available?
Yeah, he went back up to his office.
I just wanted to confirm with Nikhil that two questions. That's so funny. And if he comes in out of breath.
Well done, well done.
You want to take the podium? You need to take a few long breaths, or okay.
Right, I did come running down, so.
Given the size of the action item, I have a couple, maybe 2 questions that are budget related. They're sort of questions that go together. One is the civil engineer and the utility consultant. They may not have been line items, but we, of course, knew this was coming as part of our overall litigation projections. Right. Is this budgeted? And I would imagine not as particular line items for the 2 different professionals. And then 2, to the extent that it's budgeted, I imagine it's a certain amount of it is budgeted for the current fiscal year only. And so I'm just trying, for the benefit of the public, it's a large number, and I think it's important to understand that we have, whether we've considered that in our budget currently and how it shows up.
I'll try to answer that question partially. At the outset, when the budget was adopted, staff set aside 1.95 million towards acquisition costs that included attorney fees plus any other costs. This exact figure, we didn't know this exact figure, so we couldn't budget it. But now that we know what this is going to be, we would need to amend the budget, and this would be part of our mid-year budget amendment, where we would need to factor in, after checking with the consultants, how much of this would be spent this fiscal year.
I see.
And then we would take that and amend our mid-year. That would be our final budget. So yes, part of those expenses, if they can be covered within the 1.95, are there, and if that's insufficient, then we do need to amend the mid-year.
And is it possible that it is sufficient currently?
No. And part of the reason is, so we budgeted for attorneys to get us through filing of the eminent domain proceeding. And we had Reftelis to kind of, if you elected to move forward with a hearing necessity and a resolution necessity, to then do some follow-on work. So we budgeted for that follow-on work. But by design, we've never wanted to have the board make a budget decision as if you knew that we were going to get there. So in other words, you had complete discretion to, at the October meeting, say, okay, I've seen all the facts, but I'm not voting in favor of the acquisition at this point, so I vote no on the resolution. We never wanted you to make a budget decision that said, oh, I'm preordaining that we're going to vote yes on the resolution of necessity. So these things by their nature are unbudgeted because it's the next step.
Right. Okay. And the mid-year budget is gonna, I mean, it's beyond my tenure, but it's typically about when? February?
Yes.
And so we would take that, and he spoke correctly, we would try to figure out how much of this work will be done in the current fiscal year. That becomes a mid-year budget number adjustment. But then in June, as we're going forward, same thing, how many of these services are going to be provided in the following fiscal year? And frankly, some of these quotes include services that will be in the 2 fiscal years out.
It seems like it to me.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't, yeah. Thank you for running down the stairs.
Absolutely. Anytime. Maybe I should just sit here.
You can run up and just.
I don't run up on OJI.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah, actually, that was a very good question about the timing. As I read through the list of tasks, condition assessment, operations assessment, and so on, I realized that although all this is being done in the context of litigation for our eminent domain lawsuit, but a lot of these things are things that if we win and if we proceed, then these are going to be this is all extremely useful information
Yeah.
to figure out what needs to be repaired, replaced, replacement schedules.
Where do deficiencies lie? Yeah, absolutely.
So it would serve that purpose too. If we succeed with the lawsuit, then that's remains very valuable information. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're just talking about phase 1. It would be probably pretty valuable should we get that far to phase 2.
Well, and so very interesting point, because our 3 thrusts, and this is no secret, so it's not like we're revealing any tactic, is it's cheaper to the ratepayer under public ownership. It's more transparent and you have greater control in your governance. And there will be operational improvements. It'll be no worse, but certainly we expect it to be better. We may learn, we have our suspicions, but you may learn that that's being operated just fine. However, long-term water supply planning has been lacking, customer service may be lacking. So there's still improvements that can be made, a local call center versus calling the East Coast and so forth. So in the operations area, that's the hardest one for us to show that, that we know more than they do because they are the operator and the owner. But we have to get smart enough to say, we understand what we're getting. And by the way, they've been a bad steward in this, and this. Maybe you can say it, maybe you can't say it. But when it comes to the valuation trial, the second phase,
right,
you need to be able to say, like in Missoula's case, there was a little bit of buyer's remorse because once they really got in there, it's like, oh, here's 10 to 15 million dollars of stuff that we weren't aware of. So you try to do your best, but you can't get into the pipes in the ground. You can't really, see those, but you can see certain studies and you can make assessments as to, oh, there's stuff we're going to have to fix when we become the owner. But the valuation trial will be a period where the owner says, look at how good this pipe is. And, really we should reset the depreciation clock because it's going to last another 40 years. And we've just updated all our tanks and, so the condition's so good that it should be replacement costs at this high level. And we'll be like, well, no, this wellhead is using duct tape and, it's showing its wear. And so then you get into the whole valuation discussion. So you get the chance to see the facilities during discovery for the bench trial. You may or may not use that information at the bench trial, but certainly in valuation trials, Director Eisenhart was pointing out.
I just have one last comment. I've said it many times to my clients in litigation, once we made that choice and once we, as a board, passed the resolution of necessity and authorized the acquisition lawsuit, you do that with your eyes wide open. On behalf of the public, going all the way back to Measure J and before, this was the move that the public wanted. This was our review of the resolution of necessity that caused us enormous concern at the time. And this is the direction that we have chosen almost unanimously as a board to do. Because you abstained. And so
He recused himself.
he recused himself, thank you. And so this is not, in my opinion, anything other than absolutely necessary if you're thinking and serious about pursuing this course. I just wanted to be clear about how we're budgeting it so that we budget for it.
I have some questions if other members. It seems to me the issue of discovery is kind of a key to what we can learn about the existing status of so much of the infrastructure as well as information in general, maintenance or whatever. But what could be the timing on having a discovery decision? And how much control does CalAm might have in terms of scheduling it, restricting it, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Apple Valley is probably a good example. It was not CalAm, it was Liberty Utilities, but the attorney for Liberty is George Soniff with the Manhattan Law Firm, so same law firm. They did everything they could to not everything, but a lot of times there would be boxes and boxes of physical documents that required a great deal of sorting out. There was an effort at that time to actually analyze work orders and see how overhead charges were done. It's not clear that we're going to do the same thing, but there were, you've got Liberty Utilities, you've got their parent Algonquin. For a while, there was a Carlisle Group was involved before Carlisle Group sold these assets to Liberty. And so there was a lot of tracking of overhead charges, and it was very tedious work. And so sometimes you will get overwhelmed with just boxes of data. We've developed our very first request for production, and it's 130 requests or RFPs, requests for production of documents. And I could see where some of them could result in 20 different documents just being dumped on us and only one of them being relevant. So we don't really know what we're going to get. But the other example from Apple Valley was the site visit kept getting pushed off. And so your ability to go in as or with your team of consultants and assess the conditions was very late in the process, and then it was followed by a deposition very quickly. And so absorbing the information that you've just seen with eyes and then formulating how you feel about it really got shortened. So there will be a whole bunch of gamesmanship played with timing, quantity. Missoula had a lot of document requests that ended back up in front of the judge, where they were trying to say, oh no, these are confidential and can't be produced. And it's like, well, we know they exist, you must produce them. And, and the judge had to rule. And so there's potential for that to happen here as well. So we're just getting started. They're just getting started. To date, all of their special interrogatories and requests for production have solely related to the activation of the latent power to sell water retail. So it's not even into the other issues. Well, I take that back. Some of them were, what's your basis for this? What's your basis for that? So they did go through our resolution of necessity and picked out about 60 of the findings and asked questions on those, but the detail hasn't really happened yet. I've looked at what we've asked for, and I think we can make 2 more document requests within a month, asking for even more based on lists that, for example, Craig Close has given us and that we've pulled from the Montana experience and so forth. So we know what we're looking for in many, many cases, and we haven't asked for it all yet.
So if we ask for, 120 items, do we have a chance to ask for another 40 items
Yes.
later on?
It's unlimited.
And it's
It's
unlimited?
unlimited.
And then do you need a court approval of each one of those, or?
No, it's basically approved. And
Okay,
a lot of it is, the judge in the court kind of trusts you to work together. So, we requested 2 or 3 different delays in our response. Our first one, you can't delay indefinitely, but if they're reasonable, to date, they haven't sensed any urgency, so they let us put it off, or we responded in parts. We had 2, we had a supplemental response. And so we'll see, how they respond to our first request. But it is unlimited. That can be abused, but we don't know that much. So they can ask a lot of things, and it doesn't go very deep.
what's the prognosis on when this process might start?
It's
It's already started. Yeah,
I mean, have we submitted a list so far?
we have not.
Preparing a list, I understand.
We've prepared our first one. Final comments went in a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago now. So it's pretty much ready to go. But we also dealt with the demur and the these other things here in the deposition.
Well, yeah,
So,
long demur.
yes.
Sometimes a judge will set a discovery cutoff date, saying you've got to wrap it up by a certain date. If it's being dragged out too long.
Okay,
And if there are disputes about, refusal to answer questions or something, they can go before the judge to resolve the disputes.
okay, well, this is the place where we wanted to be for a long time. And Callahan has been a master at slowing everything down. So I'm just anticipating another whole process of slow walking.
But this
That's why I'm asking.
But this was very not only predictable. I think Callum had to do what they did. They had to bring the demur. They had to. That it took us. That's not Callum's fault. That it just took a long time. But this is all very predictable, including this expense that we're talking about coming back to the vote. So.
Okay, well, good. I'm just glad to get that dialogue and opinions out there. Let's hear from the public.
Yes, good evening again. Tom Rowley, Vice President, Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association. It would have been nice to have these numbers in the ballot measure when this was passed when some people thought they were going to get a chance to vote on this again. But anyway, we recall Senator Everett Dirksen from great state of Illinois. A few million here and a few million there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. Anyway, we're past that stage already. As you said, it was predictable. And that's why some of us were concerned about a commitment by this board without putting it to a vote, which you've already made your resolution and all that business last year. So anyway, you got the few million that's now, you're going to vote for it. And the problem is Cal-Am water is not for sale. They're going to continue to resist you to the ultimate, and you're going to get hit with another couple million further down the pike. And you guys should make a decision sooner rather than later to stop this process. If Cal-Am water was for sale, I'd say yes. It would be to the benefit of the public to reach a deal, but they're not ready to negotiate with you as a board. And the other thing is, right now, Cal-Am water is subject to control of the Public Utilities Commission. You guys are not subject to anybody's control, which is, great. If you feel you can handle, running a water company without anybody outside of you controlling you, that's fine, or taking responsibility for. But this is something some of us have thought about and thought about hard. But again, you cannot get over the hump that Cal-Am water is not for sale. And they're going to resist you, and there's going to be millions, and there's going to be millions more. So you guys, at some point, need to make a decision to say, cut bait and go fishing and end this drill that you're going through. It's just 2 million, and there's going to be more later on. Thank you.
My last meeting, can I have the prerogative one more time to make a comment?
You can have a comment, sure.
The numbers don't lie. Mr. Raleigh's correct about a million here, a couple million there. General Manager Stolt, can you just remind the public, just ballpark it, in terms of the money that the public, the ratepayer would save if the district owned the water system on things like capital expenditures, rates over the long haul, the difference in the water when the purchase money loan is paid off. Can you just help us understand, are we talking a couple, 2 million here for the district?
Yeah, the easiest answer is Cal-Am Central Division is $100 million a year business. And our financial feasibility work and then the update of the financial model with the appraised value back last April, continues to show 7 to 13% savings per year. So call it 10. That's 10 million a year. All of the cost that I hear the public worrying about in the comments is made up in 1 year if the public becomes the owner.
And that's without running capital expenditures through a rate case. How much are we, how much are we talking about if it's about, no, honestly, it's a couple $100 million to bring the water system up to speed as a capital expenditure, and we don't have to go.
So utilities are large scale capital expenditure driven businesses. The district's cost of capital in today's market would be about 4.5%. All in. The cost of capital for a investor-owned utility is blended cost of capital about 9.6%. But in order to pay that cost of capital, part of it's shareholder rate of return, part of it's actual cost of debt, blended together, roughly a 60-40 equity to debt, 58% in some utilities and 42%. But anyway, get this blended cost of capital. But in order to pay shareholders or to pay the debt expense, you have to collect it from ratepayers and you have to pay income taxes. Now you'll get a break on your income taxes as the utility for debt costs, interest expense. But all in, the pre-tax money is like 15 to 16% rate of return. So you're comparing 15% cost of capital to 4.5% cost of capital. So even if there were no savings operation wise in year one, going forward in terms of the cost of feeding an infrastructure hungry business is like 1/3 under public ownership versus private ownership. So it's that accumulation of things that drive that savings number when I said 7 to 13% savings.
And then the last thing, what I remember hearing just a moment ago, is that we're not subject to, as a public owner of water system, the CPUC.
Right. And right off the top there's a line item called regulatory expense.
A lot of lawyers go to the CPUC on behalf of their clients.
Yeah.
And in terms of the regulator, it's you and me, it's the public. It's the transparency of the fact that this is we're on Zoom.
85% of all urban water is provided in California by public agencies with boards of directors and transparent operations and
down to the penny.
Just piggyback on that.
Thank you for that.
But we would be regulated, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
there's standards, operation procedures. I mean, we would have people overseeing how this operation is ran.
absolutely. And you've got water use efficiency standards. You've got reporting now that's brand new on every 405 urban water providers have a target that gets monitored. You've got a 5-year urban water management plan filed with the Department of Water Resources at the state. All of our water rights would still be governed under the State Water Resources Control Board. Many masters that regulate, and ultimately the Division of Drinking Water that protects the public interest in terms of water quality. Water quality reporting, testing.
Some of the same ones that regulate Cal-Am.
Yeah, it's not like it suddenly becomes the Wild West and we're free to do whatever we want. Yeah.
Well, I move for approval of this item.
But do we want to check on Zoom, if anybody on Zoom?
Yes,
we'll check.
he going to bed.
It's only 7:30.
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to just ask one little comment about managing this contract, multiple contracts and so on. Just remind me again of where Dave Laredo is with you, general manager, and the multiple contractors.
Right. All of these contracts will be directly with the district. So that role of contract administration is no longer at DeLay and Laredo. And that we started that way for confidentiality to get through the first phase. Dave Laredo remains involved in the proceeding. Our special counsel, Lieutenant Tucker, is assisted by Shoot Mahali and Edward Schexnader to deal with the latent powers issue and so forth. The problem that we're drifting into at this point is this is more roll up your sleeve, hands-on engineering work. So I'm starting to pull our district engineer into the game. Somebody earlier mentioned credit rating. Michelle is getting pulled into the game. And unfortunately, a lot of this burden is falling to me, which is why we need to get an assistant in here.
And that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So, and that is moving along. We've got our first meeting with the recruiter on Thursday this week.
Oh, great.
So,
Good.
yeah, it's related to this scope of work. So, I hope we have it covered, but we're thin.
Well, and we want you to make sure you're healthy and taking the time available as best you can. Yes, Mary?
Just wanted to be clear in my mind, the 965, it says it's based on potential hours. Would you say that looking at the time frame, is it 965 for 1 year and then 965 for 2 years? You think it's 965 for however long?
It's 965 for however long it takes, which should be 18 months to 2 years, depending on what happens with, if they decide to break it into 2 bench trials, as we've talked about. And some of those hours ultimately may not happen.
Be expended.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve item number 10, to approve the engineering and utility operations consultants, combined consultants. Any other comments from the board? All in favor?
Before you go, Mr. Chair, who was the second
I did
comment?
not get a second.
Oh, I thought I heard a second.
I'll second that.
Alvin made the motion.
I'll second it.
Director Eisenhart seconded. Okay, I thought I heard a second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you for that. And Michelle was rushing down when he did.
That was funny.
So that includes the action items, the discussion items. We have one on. Yes, so General Manager, can you update us on the water allocation?
We got a letter apparently on that.
We did. We got a letter from City of Monterey. They're on board. I went to their city council 2 weeks ago. That was the first of the policymaker visits. I have Delaware City Council tomorrow evening, Airport Board Wednesday morning, Pacific Grove City Council Wednesday evening, and
Wow.
the mayor gets the pleasure of seeing me twice in 1 week on Thursday. There was a presentation to the city managers made by the county, my counterpart, Ara Darian, on Friday. And he repeated the presentation to the Monterey County Water Resources Agency Board today. As expected, they continue to call into question the long-term viability of the source waters for the Pure Water Monterey expansion, which calls into question, why are you allocating water from an iffy project? But I think his tone today was not at odds. I think it was just, here's our view, and the agency says that they think that the source water might be in decline going forward. We disagree. Obviously, the 2 indicators are, we kind of trust all the work that Monterey One Water's put into it. They have the data, they have the operating system, they have the engineers who've looked at it. They know it's been a question over and over and over. They're the ones closest to it, and they've answered the question to our satisfaction, number one. And number two, there was an implication in today's presentation that some of these sources are variable. And we did not enter into a variable contract where we just deliver whatever we feel like year to year. We've got a commitment. And if you don't meet your commitment, you're in breach. So we would not have entered into that without the assurances that there is a known and definable annually available amount of water coming from the project. So we stick to that end. It's a little bit opposed to what County Water Resources Agency pitched. But nevertheless, I go in front of the Board of Supervisors on December 4th. They have a 2-day meeting in December, the 3rd and the 4th. And Sand City's City Council, I believe, the night of the 3rd. So prior to our December meeting, I'll have done all of those with the exception of City of Carmel that wanted to defer without setting a date. So, and then the service branches went so far as to say, we're all good. We don't need a presentation.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So Dave, source water is under contract. So
Well, some is and some isn't.
some, okay, so they can't, if they build a plant out there, will we have to renegotiate, or
Exactly, and that's part of the conversation is, and let's just take, for example, the growing season kind of ends in October. And so you've got November, December, January, February, a little bit of March, sometimes April, where the growers are taking less water. So for 26 years, Monterey One Water has had the ability to take that water, but no use. Except in 2020, when this plant, the base plant, turned on, now they've got a use for it. So they have been using some of that unutilized wastewater. There could potentially be a project down the road where the growers say, we're going to capture all that 4 to 5 months of winter water and treat it up for our own use or treat it up to deliver to combat seawater intrusion and deal with sigma issues. So there is no contractual right to that surplus, but in 26 years, it's never been a project. And so Monterey One Water continues to say, when you engineer, when you design, engineer, and permit a project, then we have a problem with that water. But there's also existing water rights where we do have a right. And then if the Valley interests wanted to blow up the existing amended and restated water recycling agreement, which was developed in roughly 2015, kind of replaced the previous one, then all the wastewater would be back on the table. And so the 6 peninsula cities, we would assume, would say, well, we're now taking our wastewater back and we're dedicating it to Pure Water Monterey because that's our potable drinking water supply. You know, sorry, growers. And so it wouldn't result in a significant change. So there's a number of scenarios that you can identify. And even the last one, there's what's called the ag waiver, and the regional board could eventually enforce and tell every grower along the Blanco drain or the reclamation ditch that they need to treat their own water before it gets discharged into the ditch. Past experience tells us that they don't have the resources to do that. And if we walked over and said, for $2 million, we'll collect everybody's irrigation water and you won't have to worry about it, and you won't be in violation of the now changed ag waiver because you won't be discharging it into the ditch, we'll take it off your hands. They're more likely to go to that business deal than individually spend the money. And so these are all things you can think up, and they are legitimate business risks. And, you know, we could add another one. Currently, the project isn't really taking the Salinas produce wash water, but it could. And Salinas does from time to time ask the project to take that pond number 3 water. So they'll say, you don't get our water, and then they'll say, will you take our water? But yeah, they could move all those operations to Gonzales, easy on, easy off the highway type of thing. So, you know, there's business risks related to source water. There's regulatory risk. Those risks are out there. And yeah, we could find ourselves in 20 years going, oops. But right now, it's been a calculated risk, and many of these are contractually obligated. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Also, I think the ag industry has been saying for 10 years, that water is ours.
Yeah.
But they've taken no action to make a plan around using it and so on. So talk is cheap.
Yeah.
But it's disturbing sometimes.
Well, and the story hasn't changed in like 5 years. It's time to kind of get past it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the last of our items on the agenda. Anybody have any comments or questions of the general manager or want to add? Other than that, we are adjourned.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Good meeting.